In the fast-paced world of business, change is essential for survival and growth. The corporate landscape is continuously reshaped. Yet, managing change remains one of the most challenging endeavors for organizations. In this video we delve into the strategic realm of change management.
How is our work environment changing? In the 1920s, Nikolai Kondratev proposed the theory that the economy grows and shrinks in long cycles. A new wave crest always builds up when a breakthrough invention triggers a wave of innovation, for example the steam engine, railways, automobiles, the internet and digitalization or AI. What does this mean for change today, SKope?
As change cycles are becoming ever shorter and the respective changes ever more drastic, two acronyms are used to describe the framework conditions of the modern working landscape. I'm sure you heard of the VUCA model. Hereby V stands for volatility and captures the unpredictable and fast-paced nature of change. U for uncertainty further characterizes the unpredictability of the professional world. C for complexity points out the overwhelming amount of aspects, levels and dimensions and the issue that cause and effect relationships are indistinguishable. And A for ambiguity describes that situations can be evaluated differently and there most likely isn't a simple solution to things.
The other acronym to describe change is captured with Bonnie. B for brittle points out that unforeseen and sudden events can shock or even destruct systems. A for anxious captures the helplessness and feeling of powerlessness, which the knowledge of the brittle environment causes. Also, this anxiety can be increased by misinformation. And for nonlinear aligns with the complexity in the VUCA framework, stating that there are no more laws of cause and effect. Seemingly minor issues can lead to huge consequences, while roots of problems take time and to be caught and fixed. And I for incomprehensible points out that most of these complex challenges are no longer able to be grasped by the human mind, because of how things influence each other on various levels. Especially during COVID, the Bonnie framework became visible and showed us the character of change in these modern times. But change is not a new phenomenon, it's always been occurring. So most important change models were developed long before.
What models of change are there?
First, there is Levin's fundamental and classical model, which includes 3 phases. The unfreeze phase is the pre-creation before change, in which restraining forces and driving forces are still balanced. The change phase is characterized by emerging restraining forces, affecting the productivity. And the final phase describes the phase when the new process has already been accepted, therefore driving forces took over and productivity outgrows the initial level. Second, there is the 8-step process for leading change described by Cotter in the early 1990s. The steps he phrased are divided in 3 phases, starting with creating the climate for change with the steps 1, create urgency, 2, form a powerful coalition and 3, create a vision for change. The second phase is engaging and enabling the organization with the steps 4, communicate the vision, 5, empower action and 6, create quick wins. Followed by the third phase of implementing and sustaining for change, with step 7 of build on the change and step 8, make it stick. And the last model we are looking at in this video is the change curve or house of change, describing the emotional experience of people in the change process. The curve is starting off with the space of habit, including the comfort zone, entering the space of resistance with shock and disbelief, denial, uncertainty, resistance, and rational acceptance, ending in a sorrowful state. From there the space of adaptation begins with discovery and adaptation leading up to the last quadrant, the space of renewal engagement including emotional acceptance and engagement. Now we have a good overview of change. But what if people don't want to deal with change or even try to stop change from happening?
How to deal with resistance towards change. In order to be aware of the source of resistance, it's useful to have an understanding of where a person's concerns are coming from. There can be a lack of understanding of the problem. This attitude can also be triggered by poor communication. Also, a lack of trust in managers and management in general increases the negative attitude towards change. Non-active participation in the change process also leads to resistance. And employees' fear of additional work can be a certain cause of opposition. There is also the fear of personal disqualification. And finally, conflicting goals, caused by change, can be a problem. By finding which of these roots of resistance apply, you can work on that cause, like more actively involving employees in the process or starting over on the communication of the change process.
Thank you, SKope. Now let us have a look on following resistance management principles. First, you can keep in mind that there is no change without resistance. If there is no resistance, no one believes in its realization. So it is not the appearance, but the absence of resistance that is worrying. Second, resistance always contains a coded message, and the causes of resistance lie in the emotional sphere, including concerns, fears, and anxiety. It's important to grasp these emotions in order to deal with the resistance. Third, ignoring resistance leads to backlash. Increased pressure leads to counterpressure. And last but not least, take resistance seriously, therefore take the pressure off, leave room for resistance, listen, start a dialogue, explore causes and come to mutual agreements together. Finally, let us look at the best practices in the change process.
How should we accompany change? Sarah, how can we encourage others to support change, described by the 4 fields of action in the influence model of McKinsey & Company?
Thanks for asking, SKope. Let me show you the influence model. First, I'll change my attitude and behavior when I understand what's being asked of me, and it makes sense to me. Therefore, you need to provide me with a compelling story. Second, I feel comfortable with change when I recognize that our structures and systems are able to support change. These can be summarized as reinforcement mechanisms. Third, I will be able to change my behaviors when I have the skills and opportunities to behave in the new way. These are the skills required for change. And fourth, I change when I see my managers and colleagues behaving differently. That's role modeling. Recap.
Change is and has always been a normal part of every process, therefore we need change management. Today's professional world can be characterized with the VUCA or Barney acronym. Levin's change model, the 8-step process for leading change by John P. Cotter, and the emotional change curve are the most important change models you can keep in mind. And very important, resistance is part of every change process and shouldn't be encountered too negatively but seen as a powerful source to actively face and understand the details behind the change process. Finally, facing change with the influence model can be a game changer for successful change management.
Thank you, SKope, and thank you for watching our video.